echoing darkness across the veils of the world is not uncommon, especially at the boundaries of such a world when it is constantly on the verge of upheaval. In the Temple of Cacophony, at the edges of the burning volcano Arnrock in the Lake of Steam, the Sisterhood of Deimos maintain a vigilant eye on the point where the veil is weakest. Here, this island sits at a paradox point between the water, fire, earth, and air. From its outside, it appears a ruin, abandoned after some fiery cataclysm. Rumors of the wraith-like denizens that haunt the lifeless islands circulate around the villages and towns at the edges of the lake, keeping wanderers away and silencing those that know otherwise. The Sisterhood prefers it that way. Here in the depths of the temple, nestled in the abandoned-looking hallways, sits a particular place that is called the Kul Thal Ul, the watchroom. A place of vigil in that echoing darkness, where not a moment goes by where eyes are not focused, not only inward, but outward as well.
Tendrils wrap like boneless fingers around the soul and body. The sensation of skin on gripping damp flesh crawl along the inner self. It is always a paradox, a maddening paradox of comfort and terror. Yet, the steady beat of the heart, pumping life-giving blood through the body, is the rhythm that separates the real from the perceived.
Kestra's body shudders as the vision's imagery takes hold. Her veiled face winces momentarily with the discordant sensations, trying to cling to that difference between the real, the imagined, and the other.
A being, not her, not me. Someone with great power stands on the brink, threatens to tip the scales of power. They are in danger of coming under the sway.
Kestra hunches her body forward over the rock stand that's before her, the shattered and broken mirror of Heshtesh flowing and orbiting around in front of her in reflective fragments. There are no saving graces during a vigil. The Sisterhood trains their members for this task, to watch the ebb and flow of things, to not look away. One of the fragments rotates enough to catch the glow coming from Kestra's eyes, and that light flashes back at her.
A human sits on his knees, bound by the skin of beasts, strapped down to rings on a cold stone floor under the light of an eerie blue-green flame. The chant around him is heard, and though the man might not know the abyssal words, his lips move, and he utters the words in unison.
Zul valan kirakto, Zul vituvik kiratto, Zul tandaruvatik kotuk, Mavirar turantar, Mavirar errambatar, Kutam tiram varukira, Kamarakam se yunka.
The lashes around the man begin to ooze like a tar-like substance. It doesn't drip. It doesn't fall. It slowly flows up his arms, across his body, and finally over his face, his eyes opening in sudden fear as they're swallowed and encased. He is now formless and enveloped in the darkness. And that darkness moves. And it stares back at me. No.
Kestra feels the sudden cold shudder of release and opens her eyes to see the reflective shards of the plate sitting whole and unbroken on the pedestal. Around her, in the four corners of the room, 3 of her sisters writhe where they stand before the similar plates of Heshtash. Their movements are a blur before becoming still, and then blur once again. Although in actuality, they remain fixed, staring at the plates, the windows that see into all. None of them seem bothered, or have awoken from their vigil early as she has. The open doorway into the watchroom is suddenly filled with another sister, Shara, the current caretaker of this vigil. Kestra, you've awoken? The question seemed more statement.
Caretaker. Zul has gained someone of power. A man being swallowed by darkness, but then embraced by it. A great dark power roils beneath the surface.
Kestra seems to listen and understand. She straightens and steps back. Where? What kind of night? Why did the Brotherhood take him? Kestra looks lost. By all accounts, she should have probed deeper, found out more. But there was something different here this time. And she tells her all that she saw. Shara places a hand on Kestra and goes over to the other 3, one by one, whispering into their ears. For brief moments, the swaying stops and halts, and then continues as the sisters focus on the specific events that Kestra had seen, their plate fragments weaving around them once again, moving. And then, that's when the screams begin. Nishul is the first who screeches in an agonized wail as the bladed edges of her plate whirl violently around her. They spin in a fury through her body and begin careening across the room, the bloody pieces and reflective plate falling to the floor and shattering against the walls as the wooden woman suddenly loses control and expires in a bleeding heap onto the floor. No. Calypso falls next, and as her shards of Heshtash freeze around her in forming a sphere, they begin to melt and ooze together. From the larger sections, inky tendrils latch themselves to her as she is spun around violently, staring at her stunned sisters. Time seems to stand still for a moment, and her veil twists, revealing the beautiful tiefling face beneath. And then, in a moment it is over. The tendrils retract, and in the process, rip Calypso apart. As they move, they pull the pieces of the woman back into the reflective surface, and little is left of her body besides the memory of the sound and crunch of bone and tearing of flesh and cloth, and then the shattering of more glass as the fragments fall and hit the floor. Arette is the last. From her fragments come bursts of some arcane electric energy that light her veil on fire as she begins to course across her body. She is lifted into the air, and in her dying scream is choked out as some unseen force grips her neck. She is flung across the room, slammed up against the wall before she falls limply to the ground. As some heartbeats begin to cease, others increase in volume, and for the first time in recent memory, no one is watching. No one guards the veil. Shara stands poised in a protective stance in front of Kestra, arms stretched, head darting from side to side as she backs her back towards the door. She mutters to herself, Lord Dimos, Enkal alukayaik, itayunumandaik, mituyatu. Once on the other side of the door, she raises her arms up and uses her magic to summon the stones down in place, sealing the room, creating a smooth surface over the wall, hiding what might have entered on the other side. In urgency, Shara turns back to Kestra. Sister, my child, are you all right? Are you all right? She says, trying to calm the wild-eyed woman who stands staring still at the wall.
Of all the gods' deeds, what on earth is this one?
Shara unveils herself and grasps onto Kestra, the orange-skinned tiefling beneath, searching the eyes of her sister with earnest concern. We need to speak to Ambrosia and Azrith. Tell them exactly what you saw. Everything. Exactly.
Exactly what I saw.
Okay. She grabs Kestra's hand, and together, the two race down the hall and up the stairs. The alarm will be sounded. Help will be sent for. There can be no tipping of the scales, or a war with the Thayan forces and some returning dragon queen will be the last of the world's worries.